Have you ever wondered, what if death isn't the end, but simply the moment you wake up somewhere else? We are born, we live, we love, we ache, and then we disappear. And for thousands of years, humanity has kept asking, what truly lies on the other side? Religions speak of heaven and hell, of wandering spirits and the wheel of reincarnation. Science speaks of biology, of decay and dust. But in between those two realms, where belief and reason briefly touch, there lies a question with no clear answer. Maybe death, with all its terrifying silence, isn't a full stop, but a semicolon, a pause in the sentence before the next story begins. In 2014, researchers at the University of Southampton, UK, conducted a study that shook the scientific community. They tracked over 2,000 patients who had suffered cardiac arrest across 15 hospitals. And what they discovered was chilling. Nearly 40% of these patients reported being conscious, even after their hearts had stopped. One of them, a 57-year-old man, claimed he could see doctors and nurses working to revive him, even though he had been clinically dead for over 3 minutes. He described the beeping machines, the movements of the medical staff, details he couldn't have known, unless some part of him, was watching from outside his body. Was this just the final flicker of a dying brain? Or was it something else, a second self, temporarily separated? For decades, neuroscience has tried to decode what we now call near-death experiences, NDEs. Some scientists believe it's just the result of low oxygen or a surge of endorphins softening the fear of death. But if it's just a hallucination, why do people who've never met, from different cultures and beliefs, describe the same strange journey? The floating sensation, the dark tunnel, the radiant light, the overwhelming calm. These reports repeat again and again across thousands of cases. Could it be that in the moment the body shuts down, consciousness detaches and begins to find its way home? One controversial theory suggests that consciousness doesn't actually reside in the brain. Rather, it's like a signal, and the brain is just the receiver. When the receiver breaks, the signal doesn't disappear. It simply stops being picked up. And if that's true, then death might not be disconnection. It might be reconnection, waking up, in a different room, in another reality. A place where everything you once were, your memories, your emotions, your soul, still exists. But the bigger question is, if we really do wake up somewhere else, what is that place? Is it another dimension, a cycle of rebirth, a higher plane of awareness, where the life you lived is seen under a softer, more forgiving light? Will the people we loved recognize us in the next life? Will our regrets follow us there? Will the things we left unfinished come back around? Modern science has yet to confirm whether the soul exists. But what's fascinating is this. Questions like these don't terrify us. They make us curious, gentle, alive, enough to want to live a more meaningful life while we're still here. Because if one day you wake up and realize you just died, then maybe the end you feared was never really the end. If death is a kind of awakening, then what made us fall asleep in the first place? Is it the erasure of memories? The blurring of beloved faces? Maybe each time we return, we are meant to forget, so we can begin again, like a blank page. That's what makes the idea of reincarnation both beautiful and terrifying. In many ancient cultures, reincarnation isn't a belief, it's a given. Hinduism teaches that the soul is reborn endlessly, guided by karma. Buddhism speaks of the cycle of death and rebirth. and the possibility that each soul continues on after each life ends. But here's the strange part. Despite all the stories, we still don't remember who we used to be. Why? Some researchers suggest that if we carried our past life memories into this life, we wouldn't be able to fully live it. Grief, loss, people we once loved, mistakes we once made. It would all weigh us down, like trying to write a new book while still haunted by the last chapter of the old one. Another theory says this: to learn a new lesson, you must forget the old one. Like a child learning to walk, they wouldn't take their first steps if they were paralyzed by the memory of every fall. Maybe our memories are reset not because our souls are fragile, but because they're being tested in a new setting, so they can grow stronger. But then the question becomes, who designed this test? And why? Have you ever walked into a place you know you've never been, but it still feels familiar? Have you ever met someone new, but felt like you've known them for lifetimes? Maybe it's just brain chemistry. Or maybe they're fragments of something older, echoes from a soul that's lived before, trying to whisper, you are not just this body. Suppose, just suppose, the soul is real, and it has lived many lives before. Then what makes a soul higher? Is it that it has learned more, loved more, given more, or that it has been broken more and still chose to rise? And if souls can be layered, from animal to human, from the cruel to the awakened, then perhaps we're all on the same path, not of biological evolution, but of consciousness. If that's true, then everyone around you may be walking their own version of that path. The person you love most today could have once broken your heart in another life. Or maybe they were someone you lost long ago, now returned in a new form. We don't know. But if that's even partly true, then maybe no meeting is random, no glance, no handheld. Maybe it's all a continuation of a chapter that never truly ended. But that brings us to a harder question. If I love someone deeply in this life, and they leave me, can I believe enough to wait for them in another life? Can I love again, not knowing whether the soul in front of me is the one I once lost? And if my soul once hurt someone, am I now paying for that pain in the sadness I carry? In the end, the question is this: if death is just a doorway, how are you living during this brief visit? Are you living like a soul borrowing a body? Or do you still think you're just a name, an address, a career, a set of bones? Maybe true awakening doesn't come after death. Maybe it happens the moment you ask, who am I, really? And if you're still asking, then maybe you're already beginning to wake up from a very, very long dream. Thank you for staying until the very last moment. If what you've just heard made you pause for a beat, made you think a little deeper about yourself and this world, then perhaps we've already met, somewhere beyond words. If these are the kinds of questions you want to keep exploring, subscribe to the channel. Because who knows? The next video might be the soft, quiet reminder you've been waiting for. We'll meet again very soon.